Alright guys, so with Captain Marvel just being released, I want to do my updated ranking on the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. Now, there are 21 films as of now, and I'm not going to include the TV shows because I have not seen all, I've seen parts of most of the TV shows, but I have not seen them all in total. I've seen a lot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I've seen most of the seasons of the Netflix shows, but I just have not seen them all. So it's only movies on this ranking. So this will be an interesting ranking because I do love this franchise. It's one of my absolute favorite franchises to watch or rewatch. And I'm always excited with any Marvel film that comes out now, part of this universe. And this is going to be a favorite to least favorite, not like best to worst, because I never feel like saying best to worst is always subjective, no matter what people say. If people say it's objectively this way, I feel like that's still subjective. So, for me, it's best to worst, or worst to best. So, well, let's just start out with my number 21, which is Thor: The Dark World. Now, this one is one that, overall, if you look at all the films, I feel like this is the most pointless one. I mean, it's got fun things about it. I like these characters. I like the humor. But it's forgettable. Like, it's the most forgettable one. The villain is the most forgettable, I think, out of, any Marvel film. Malekith, he doesn't have... He's a dark elf, and that's it. There's nothing... There's like one line of dialogue saying, oh, I've got to take over again. And that's it. There's literally nothing else. And this does set up a thing with an Infinity Stone, but the movie, for the most part, feels extremely pointless. But it's fun. It has fun moments, and I enjoy it. But that's why it's my number 21. That's why it's my least favorite. But it still has some moments I enjoy. And then my number 20 would be Iron Man 2, one that people say is one of the worst. And... worst, whatever. None of these movies come even close to being legit bad, in my opinion. But Iron Man 2 is fun. I really do enjoy this. I think that overall, again, it's sort of forgettable. But I mean, Robert Downey Jr. does have a great performance in this, like he does in all of them. And it's great seeing Don Cheadle first introduced, and I like the fights, I like the action, I like the characters. The villain's kind of bland, and it's Mickey Rourke, and that sucks that it's kind of bland. But it's fine overall. It's not awful, or it's not bad in any way. It's just kind of forgettable with the couple cool things about it. The ending fight is pretty cool, I'll give it that. Then my number 19 would be Captain America: The First Avenger, which is the first Captain America movie where... this is one of those characters where each film he's in got way better, and this one is still a great, solid first film. And Joe Johnston, who also directed The Rocketeer, which has a very similar vibe to The Rocketeer, this is very cool visually. I do like these characters. I like the action. I do like it being in the 1940s during World War II, but that kind of takes it away from it because that kind of, in this type of movie, just kind of bores me that it's in World War II. But that's cool that it's different, that it's in World War II and it's not in current time. Even though it's not really about Hitler, it's about Hydra, who is this fictional created group of people that are taking over like the Nazis as well. So it's interesting, but it's not forgettable, but it's just one that I would watch the least, I guess. It's got great merits about it. I do love the characters and the acting. I really like... again, Chris Evans is great, and the first star for him is awesome. And Haley Atwell as Agent Carter is fantastic. She's a great character. I love her. And it's fun for the most part, but it's just not one that is as watchable to me as the others. So that's why it's my number 19. And my number 18, here we go, is the newest Marvel film, Captain Marvel. Now, this one, I'm not going to give any spoilers on this one because this one just came out. But Captain Marvel is good. It's a solid, fun Marvel movie, but it just, to me, on my first watch, I feel like I wouldn't rewatch it as much as a lot of these others. And it's a shame because this is the first real female-led movie. I mean, we had Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was a duo of a man and a woman. But this one is the first female-led MCU film which is a cool thing. I love that we have that, but I just felt like the movie for the first watch was a little forgettable with some of the characters. It had some really fun moments. The cat is awesome. I love the cat. Samuel L. Jackson is great as Nick Fury. Brie Larson is awesome as Captain Marvel. I don't know anything about this character from the comics, but I like Brie Larson in the movie. I thought she was fine. I thought she was fun. It's just one that I don't know. Maybe if I watch it again, it might go up in the ranking, but it's not like I'm saying it's bad or any of these are bad. It's just when push comes to shove, it's one of the lesser ones so far from my first watch, and I haven't seen it more than once. So maybe in a second watch, it might go higher up the list. But as of now, it is number 18. And then my number 17 would be Avengers Age of Ultron, the second Avengers movie, where this one, like Thor the Dark World, in some ways feels kind of pointless. But again, I love seeing these characters come together. I love seeing their banter. I love seeing them fight for the greater good. I love all this stuff. It feels kind of like a movie just build up to more sequels, because Ultron is a robot or an android that like is kind of just there in this movie, and that's it. And Loki was built up in the Avengers from the first Thor, so I liked that more. But Ultron's fine. James Spader is a great voice for him, definitely. He's scary. Like, scary voice. I do like that a lot. But it's just one of the lesser ones for me. Like, it's fun, it's enjoyable. There's some fantastic moments, like that moment where they're in Sokovia, they all gather around like the first movie, and it's added in new players, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Great. I love that. Awesome. It's just one of those that is not as rewatchable, I guess, even though I do really love it a lot. So, but that's why it's my number 17. And then my number 16 would be Ant-Man, Paul Rudd's first foray into the MCU. One of the first quote-unquote legit comedies, even though all the Marvel movies have comedy. All the Marvel movies have humor. But this one, with having Paul Rudd in it, you have to make it more comedic, and it works very well because Paul Rudd is a great comedic actor. I love him in a lot of his movies. And he just sells it. He's great in the first movie, and the first movie is just a fun, great little heist movie with a Marvel formula in it, and I love that. I love how it's not like, because literally Avengers Age of Ultron came out and then this came out. And I remember whenever I ranked them in 2015 when they both came out, I thought I liked Ant-Man more because Ant-Man was a small story, a small fun story with little stakes, and I liked how different that was. I thought that was pretty cool. And I just love the humor. I love the characters. I loved how this is the first movie with all these characters and you like them so much and appreciate them so much. Especially Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne as well, and Michael Douglas as Hank. Like, they're both great in that movie as well, and I love all three of them. They're a great duo. I really love all the characters in Ant-Man, the first one. So that's why, and it's got great fun action with great unique fun action too. Like, for example, whenever it's the final fight and they're both fighting on that train set, which is literally the Thomas the Tank Engine train set, and like they hit the train and it just topples over. Like, that's great humor. I love the humor and the characters and the action in this one. So that's why Ant-Man is my number 16. And then my number 15 would be, funny enough, the other Ant-Man movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, which came out last year, which is, again, it improves on the first one, where I really love the characters from the first one. I really love the action, the humor. This one does it even better, in my opinion. I love these characters. I love how it's not like emotional, but it's got a little more drama where like you do care for Scott Lang, because he, since Captain America Civil War, has been kept at home. Like, he can't leave from home. He's been on house arrest. And I like that all he wants is just to be with his daughter. And I like how he and Hank and Hope have been estranged, but they have to build up that relationship again. And I really love having Evangeline Lilly as the actual equal star to Paul Rudd. I love that in this movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp are both important to each other. It's not like one outdoes the other one. Like, they're both the main characters. It's not just Paul Rudd the main character this time. I really love her in this movie as well. I love how she's got that great emotional arc with her character, with her mother being gone, and and with Hank as well, with his wife being gone, and it just works really well. It really works just on caring for these characters, on the humor, on the action. The villain is good too. I really like the villain as well. She's really sympathetic, and you understand completely why she's a villain. I think she's great. So, and the ending credits scene, because this came out after Avengers Infinity War, that ending scene blew me away. I was just like, and in the theater, everybody screamed and gasped because, of course, you know it's going to happen. But I really did love Ant-Man and the Wasp. I thought it was great. So that's why it's my number 15. Even though it's low, I think it's an awesome Marvel movie, like a majority of these are. And then my number 14 would be Doctor Strange, which is again another origin story similar to Iron Man. But man, I really think Benedict Cumberbatch is great in this movie, and I think that this is, in terms of visuals, in terms of like, it's a Marvel story like Iron Man, where this character is an asshole and he has to learn a lesson. And he does, and then he becomes this great hero, and I love that. Like Iron Man, it's the same kind of story, but visually, this is incredible with different dimensions, with how they use action, with how they use cinematography. The characters are really likable. That moment between, I forgot Tilda Swinton's name. Is it the Chosen One in the movie? Where like, this is a spoiler for the movie if you haven't seen it, but she's out of her body, like in one of those, like she's technically dead and she's dying, and like there's a moment where she and Doctor Strange are looking at this moment that happens, and she's talking about how all her life she's looked upon this moment knowing this will come, and it's just one of the most, like, in terms of acting, in terms of emotion, that's just an incredible moment between them both right before she dies. It blows me away. I really love that scene, and I really love these characters. They're all so fun. They're all so likable. So that's why it's my number 14. Doctor Strange is a really fun and a trippy ass time. I really love that too. It's so fun and how different it is to the other movies in terms of visuals and trippiness. So I really like Doctor Strange. And then my number 13 would be the first Thor, which is one that people kind of, I think, are middle of the road about. But I really love the first Thor. I really love Chris Hemsworth's first performance. He's really awesome in this movie. I love how it's a fish out of water story. But it's so fun and interesting because I like all these side characters. I like Jane Foster. I like Selvig. I like Darcy. I like all these characters. They're all fun. They're all funny. I like how this, again, it's another story like this guy is too arrogant and he has to learn a lesson. So like he is taken down by his father, played by Anthony Hopkins, Odin. He is taken down to Earth to learn a lesson, and I like that. I like that, even though it's a similar story to all these other movies, I like this one a lot, and I really like, honestly, I like the romance between Jane and Thor in the first one. I think it's good. I think the musical score is fantastic. I think that visually it's really cool. The first Marvel movie that uses, like, magic in terms of, like, on the MCU, because we only had Iron Man 1 and 2 and The Incredible Hulk, and then we had this one, which goes from, like, just a man in a robot suit to a man who turns green to then a literal god. I think that's cool. Transition, because this is the fourth Marvel movie that came out for the MCU. So I really did enjoy Thor a lot, and I think it's a really underrated one, and I really do love it. And then my number 12 would be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Not as great as the first one, but still, I love it. I love these characters. I love the humor. This one is awesome with how these characters grow, because with Star-Lord, with Peter Quill, Chris Pratt's character, we get in the first movie an unresolved conclusion about his mother and father, and we get the resolution in this movie with his father Ego, played by Kurt Russell, who, talk about awesome casting. That's so cool having Kurt Russell in this. Love Kurt Russell. And he's a great equivalent for Chris Pratt's dad. Because Chris Pratt does a lot of things similar to Kurt Russell in terms of, like, performance-wise in some of his movies. So that just felt like perfect casting for him as a father to Chris Pratt. But I really love Kurt Russell's Ego. He's great. I love how this is a villain who, whenever you realize the full intention of what this character is and what Star-Lord is going to be or might not be, like, it works very well. And these characters all grow. I love I love all these characters. I love Drax, Rocket, Groot. Um, I really love Manta. She's hilarious. She's such a fun character who's like a whimsical, like she doesn't know anything because she was just born on this planet that Ego created, and he's never shown her anything else, so she doesn't understand anything. That's really funny. And I love Gamora and Nebula's relationship and how it built up from the first movie. And I love the fact that Nebula is such an incredibly sympathetic character in this movie, where there's a moment where she's talking about how she and Gamora fought when they were kids, when Thanos would make them fight, and whoever lost would get part of their body removed, and Nebula kept losing to Gamora, so then Nebula kept getting more robotic body parts, and it is just an incredibly sympathetic moment where you feel for this character. It is incredible, and I love that. So I really love how all these characters shine and grow, and they're all so funny, and Baby Groot is adorable. That's such a great difference from the first movie, old Groot to Baby Groot. That's so hilarious. And so I really love Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and the soundtrack again is on point like the last one. And then my number 11 would be Thor Ragnarok, which is the third Thor movie, which did a completely drastic 360 turn where, like, Taika Waititi, an awesome comedy director, came and did this movie, and I love that. I love Taika Waititi and his work. What We Do in the Shadows is incredible. Hunt for the Wilder People is incredible. I haven't seen... He's done a couple others, but I haven't seen all of his movies, but I want to, because the three I've seen are incredible. But Thor Ragnarok literally gets rid of all of its characters from the last two movies, besides Thor, and brings in the Hulk, brings in Valkyrie, and makes this such one of the funniest MCU movies, one of the most entertaining. It gives Thor such a funny reality difference in terms of the last two movies, where in this one, it's played so much for laughs, where I think it works way more because the idea of Thor in itself is kind of ridiculous. Like, this literal god, like, I love the fact that they make him so funny. They make all these characters so funny. Tessa Thompson, who is beautiful and a great actress. I love Tessa Thompson. It's so great to see her in this. She is awesome. She is badass. I love her. And I love Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk in this. It's so cool to bring him back. It's so cool to have him stuck on this planet fighting for a couple of years since Age of Ultron, and he went out of it whenever Thor came, and he didn't realize that he's been doing this forever, and I love that. I love the final fight with everybody. I love Hela. Hela is such a cool villain. It's so cool to have Thor have another sibling, but she was locked away forever until Odin died. And that moment where Odin died is so satisfying. It's so sad and works very well. And Loki and Thor finally get kind of a revelation in just how they feel about each other, and how jealous Loki has been of Thor, and how Thor kind of understands him more since all the stuff that's happened in the universe. And Jeff Goldblum is so cool. It's so great to have another comedic actor in this, like Jeff Goldblum, who is hilarious and so funny. There are moments where I just lose it. He's one of the funniest things in this movie, even though the whole movie is hilarious. So I love Thor Ragnarok. This is one of the best, even though it's in my number 11, but that shows how great of a franchise this is, or how entertaining it is, because I love this movie, even though it's at number 11. But I love it. I love Thor Ragnarok. And then my number 10 would be the original Iron Man, the first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie to come out. Now, this one, in terms of Robert Downey Jr. just being badass, being awesome, in terms of all the fun, in terms of all the action, in terms of the first origin story for this universe, this one is one of the best, because this character is so likable, so charming. Nobody can do it over, I think, if they do another actor for Iron Man. I don't think they're going to. Maybe they will, whatever. It's like with Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine, it's like they're gonna do another one, but don't do it. Just he's the only one that works for Wolverine. It's just like this with Robert Downey Jr. He blows me away every time I watch this movie. He's so funny, he's so charming, so charismatic. All the actors are great. Gwyneth Paltrow is great. And then Terrence Howard, who is in his only movie as Rhodey, is good. And Jeff Bridges as the villain is great. I really like Jeff Bridges. He's so great playing the villain. He's so dastardly and so evil, and I like how this is a down-to-earth Marvel movie, but it's got a man with a robotic suit. But it still feels very down to earth, and I really do love that a lot. So that's why Iron Man is my number 10. And then my number 9, here we go, everybody's gonna get triggered, trigger alert, is Iron Man 3. Now, this one, I'm not really looking at the comics version of this. Like, everybody's so pissed, like, oh, the Mandarin isn't the Mandarin. I didn't read the comics with the Mandarin, so I don't care. But in terms of Shane Black directing this, Shane Black is fucking awesome. I love his movies, and I love how he was brought in to do this movie. And I love how it's set on Christmas, like most of his movies. That's pretty cool too. But this one, in terms of action, in terms of this final Iron Man film with Robert Downey Jr., this had such a resolution to this character, such a great emotional story arc, with everything with this character and what he has come, what he has become. And even though he had movies after this, this is his last movie with just his character. It felt like a proper resolution for him, even though he keeps going on in the universe. I love the final 5 minutes of the movie are incredible. Where like and emotional, where like this character has gone through so much, and you get the full resolution and the full respect and realization of what has happened in his life, and it just works incredibly well. So Iron Man 3, for fun and for emotion, is why I like it more than the first one. You can say the first one's better, I guess, as a movie, but still, I love the third one. The third one is so good, so fun. Love everybody, love everything about it. And then my number 8 would be Spider-Man Homecoming, which I have loved a majority of the Spider-Man films, whether or not people love them either, at all. I love almost every one of the Spider-Man movies. And this one was for starting over again after literally you do 3 Tobey Maguire movies, then you reboot with 2 Andrew Garfield movies, and then the second one didn't do enough money, so then they rebooted it again and brought him to Marvel in a deal. So now we've got our third iteration with Tom Holland, who I think is a great Peter Parker Spider-Man, but it's hard to say like if he's my favorite, because I do love Andrew Garfield. I think he's incredible in those 2 movies, and I think Tobey Maguire is incredible in Spider-Man 2. But Tom Holland is more of the fun, lighthearted Peter Parker as opposed to the other 2. And it shows how great of an actor this guy is, and it shows how this version of Spider-Man, I love how he's embedded in this world where he has seen heroes fight, and he wants to be that, but he can't because he's just a kid. And I love that storyline. I really love how emotional it takes you on the ride of this character wanting to be more than what he is, and even having choices of like, oh, I don't want to go do school, I don't want to do that, I want to just fight with the Avengers. And it's from a kid's point of view, and it makes sense, but it works very well because you just really feel the world for this little character and this kid. Like, he is the literal kid in terms of like the iterations of Spider-Man we've had. Like, you really feel like this is a kid that is just has a want and a need, and it works incredibly well. And Michael Keaton is fantastic as the Vulture, the villain. Like, he's great. He's sympathetic. You understand every reason why he's the villain. Because towards the end of the movie, before the final fight, I love that conversation between them both him and Peter Parker, where he says, why do you want to be with this Iron Man guy? Like, they don't care about us. We're the lower ground. Like, nobody cares about us. They're not going to do anything for us. Why should we do anything for them? And it makes total sense in why Adrian Toomes is the villain, and like that, and like why he was wronged of Tony Stark, even though he didn't meet him. Tony Stark's like company, like gaining jurisdiction over like all the stuff that happened in New York for the first Avengers movie, because he started building parts for that, and he lost that because of Tony Stark just coming in and telling his associates, go and do this. So I really love Michael Keaton as the villain. He's so well done, and really just, you feel for this character, and you feel for Spider-Man. I love how they have a connection, even though a lot of these Spider-Man movies do that. The hero has a connection with the villain, but you feel it in this version, and that moment where the Vulture breaks down the cement building, and Peter is in the building, like in the rubble, crying, like he can't get out of it. And this moment just gives me chills. It's one of the best moments in any superhero movie I've ever seen. He's in the rubble. He can't get up. He's crying. then that narration comes from Tony Stark saying like, if you can't do anything about this without the suit, you don't need the suit. And then it gives that incredible superhero moment where he stands up, he breaks out of the rubble, he uses all of his strength to break out of this collapsed building, and it is one of the most epic and most emotional and most satisfying hero moments in any superhero arc in any movie. I love that moment of him standing up to become a true hero. I love that. It's so incredible. And it's just so fun and so likable and so funny. Even though I like the serious Spider-Mans more, like Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, or Spider-Man 2, I feel like this is still a fantastic Spider-Man movie, and it's definitely one of the best of the MCU in my opinion, even though I love a majority of these. But it's just so good. I love Spider-Man Homecoming. And then my number 7 would be the first Avengers movie. The one that got everybody together. This one, what can I say about this that hasn't been said before? The use of building up all these movies beforehand of each character and then putting them all together in a movie is just incredible. It's so cool how they did that. It's so smart how they did that. All these characters have great chemistry. I love how the first Avengers movie, all these characters have to really learn to like each other or deal with each other at the most to stop the evil, which is Loki, and do it for the greater good of the world. And in terms of action, in terms of fun, in terms of comedy, these characters have great chemistry. The action is great. The last act of them in Manhattan with aliens destroying everything in Manhattan is incredible. Just incredible action. It's so cool seeing all these Avengers together, and it just blows me away and how great it is and how fantastic of a product it turned out to be. So I love the first Avengers movie. It's just, everybody is great. Everything works so great. I can't say anything else besides it's great. And then my number 6 would be Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which people would put this at number 1. And I wanted to, believe me. I definitely wanted to, but this one, wow, like, talk about a change in how to make a movie in this universe, where this is a political spy thriller starring Captain America and Black Widow, and they both go on the run while the villain of the movie is infiltrating, like he's part of Hydra, and they're infiltrating a thing where they can destroy everybody. And it works so great as a grounded Marvel movie. Like, yeah, there's things in it that like the Falcon has wings. Like, it's semi-unrealistic, but it works in just how realistic this movie is, and how realistic it is in a world with gods and in a world with all this stuff. And I love how grounded they make this movie, and I love how strong these characters are. I love how suspenseful this is. I felt like these characters might not make it through the movie. Like, it actually has a villain that's incredibly horrible. Like, in a way, Robert Redford's character is great, and I love his performance. But I really love this movie overall, and there's not much else to say about it, but besides the fact that it is a fantastic thriller. Really love this one overall. And then my number 5 would be Black Panther, Ryan Coogler's Black Panther, who directed Creed as well, and Fruitvale Station. I have not seen Fruitvale Station. I want to. But Creed was incredible, and then Black Panther just completely solidified my thoughts that this is a fantastic director. Everything he did for this character in particular, an African-American character that I feel like in the wrong hands would have not worked. It would have made it not work well. But this director in particular just did a fantastic job of making this such an incredible character. The way that we see this universe in the Marvel universe of like these characters in Wakanda, this secluded place where it is a group of African Americans that are living lively, they have there's no racism, there's nothing in their world that is wrong to them. And I love the fact that we've got the villain, Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, who is incredible in this movie, a villain who is in the actual world, who has lived through a world of racism and horrible things. And he goes to Wakanda wanting this birthright of living in a world where African Americans are treated perfectly, and I love that villain arc. That is an incredible villain arc because this villain has seen how horrible and shitty the real world is, and he wants his birthright and wants to go back to a place where he actually can be like not live in horrible situations. I love that. That is such one of the coolest villain arcs and such a cool way to establish real life parallels of racism and real life parallels of this character and how he has lived through all these horrible situations, heard of all his ancestors being slaves, and then going to realize that there's this world where these people are selfish and they're doing their own thing and they're secluded from everybody else like them, but they are living better lives. So I just love that villain arc. That is such an incredible villain. Like Killmonger is one of my absolute favorite villains in the franchise, and Michael B. Jordan is just emotionally just such an incredible villain. And Chadwick Boseman, even though he's fantastic as well, I go for Killmonger first if I had to choose a character in this movie. Because Chadwick Boseman is fantastic, but this is the case where the villain is the best part of a fantastic movie, and he blows me away every time. But Chadwick Boseman as well is just an incredible character, but he doesn't have as much of a strong emotional arc as the villain. But again, I loved how Michael B. Jordan did it, or not Michael B. Jordan, on how Ryan Coogler did a different thing with this Marvel film, where we had the real central point was the villain. The hero was there, the hero was good, but the villain was the central point. And it's just scary, and how scary this villain is, how you've sympathized the world for him, even though he's got problems, but you understand every reason why. Visually, this is incredible, stunning, just beautiful. This world of Wakanda is beautiful. Seeing this type of world in the universe is different and unique, and I love how they do that. And I really love everything about this movie. It's just one of the best Marvel movies. Some of the best characters, one of the best villains. The music is fantastic. Really love everything about Black Panther. It blows me away every time. And then my number 4 would be the original Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a really, in terms of like the last movie I just said, Black Panther, this one is just a fun, emotional time where like this is just a fun, silly time where these characters are introduced and they're all so likable, all so fun, all have great story arcs, all have great emotional arcs. The movie has such fantastic music. The use of music from the 60s and 70s is fantastic, and it was one of those biggest surprises in terms of like a lot of Marvel execs were probably going to be like, oh, this is going to bomb because this is not something people have heard of before. Besides, like, people have read the comics, which are not even that, from what I've heard, not even that old. Like, I don't know how long the Guardians of the Galaxy comics have been released. Maybe the 2000s when they started making them, but I don't know. I could be wrong. But in terms of fun, in terms of visuals, in terms of music, this one is just one of the best. Some of the best humor, some of the best character arcs for all of these characters. Really love Guardians of the Galaxy. And then my number 3 is one that people really crap on, and I don't get any reason why, which is The Incredible Hulk. One of my favorite, and the top 3 of these Marvel movies are based on more of emotion, which emotion to me is one of the strongest aspects of any movie. If I could feel for a character, then that makes me care more and makes me like the movie even more. But The Incredible Hulk is one of those movies where this character, Edward Norton plays Bruce Banner in this version, where this character you feel the world for. You feel the world for this character and how he is on the run. He is lost to everybody. He lost his girlfriend. He lost everything. He's just on the run. He becomes this monster. He doesn't understand how to do anything. He doesn't understand how to resolve it. He's afraid he'll hurt people. He stays away from everybody. And then his girlfriend, Betty, Liv Tyler, is now like with somebody else while he is living this awful life. Like living in Cuba, like he keeps going across the country, like literally just anywhere he can run just to stay safe and try to keep this monster contained. And this is one of those movies where I feel the absolute world for this character. I never feel that way for some of these characters in all of these movies. Like some movies I feel fine for these characters, but this is one where this iteration of the Hulk, like I care so much for him. Like he is just it's so hard to see this character go through this. It's so hard to see him and Liv Tyler not be together. It's one of the best romantic movies, in my opinion. And I'm not really a fan of romantic movies, but this one, you feel the world for these characters, and you understand every reason why they want to be together, every reason why they're not, every reason why he's gone in the world. The score is one of my absolute favorite scores of all time. Like, I listen to that score all the time. It truly blows me away. And I love this movie. It's just an incredible, emotional movie. And the action is great. The last 15 minutes of him versus the Abomination, Tim Roth, is awesome. William Hurt is awesome as Betty Ross's father, this dick who just keeps trying to get Bruce Banner for government reasons. So I love The Incredible Hulk. It blows me away every time. One of my absolute favorites. And then my number 2 is very hard to choose. It was very hard to choose between this one and number 1, but my number 2 would be Captain America: Civil War. One of the strongest movies in terms of just how they make these movies and how they have all of these characters. This is basically a Avengers 2.5 without Thor and Hulk, because they were in Thor Ragnarok while this was happening. And this is one of the strongest Marvel movies and one of the absolute best, because these characters, you understand, this plot is about Steve Rogers and Tony Stark are separated. The Avengers are separated because of the Accords, which the government will want to control when and where these Avengers will fight. Half of them want it, half of them don't. So they create a fight while Bucky returns, and Bucky, who you realize through a twist killed Tony's parents, it causes even more trouble. And then Black Panther is even introduced, to where he wants to assassinate Bucky because they think that Bucky killed his father during this meeting with all the United Nations. So it blows me away in how they do this and how they have all of these characters, and you understand every single reason why every one of these characters are on any side. Like, whether if it's been built in another movie or in this movie, you understand every reason why Tony Stark wants to be on the side of keeping the government in control of them, because Tony Stark has done so many stupid things that he doesn't want to cause any more trouble. He doesn't want to cause any more problems. And then you look at Steve Rogers, the guy who lived in the 1940s, who lived in a time where he thought, you got to stand up, you got to do it yourself, you've got to not have people in control. And even after Captain America: The Winter Soldier, seeing how the government was secretly controlled by Hydra, or how it plays so much more into his character and why he wants no government control. And again, all these characters, you immediately know why these characters are wanting to be on each side. I love the fact that you get introduced to 2 new characters, and they're incredible, and they make perfect sense being in this movie, which is Black Panther, because his father is killed by Zemo, but it makes it look like Bucky killed him. And then Peter Parker, the first iteration of Peter Parker in the MCU, one of the coolest introductions. Just having him and Tony Stark talk is just so great, because you see immediately that this kid is so likable, and so you care so much for him already in only one movie. And Spider-Man: Homecoming even solidifies how much you care for him even more. But I love how this character has a little bit of screen time, and you just love him so much, just like you do T'Challa from Black Panther. That just blows me away in how they can give... They literally have like 20 or so characters in this movie, and they all are important. There's no reason for any of them to be cut. They all have a reason to be here. It just blows me away on how incredibly well written this is, how incredibly emotional this is, how the action is just incredible. It's a different type of action. It's like Winter Soldier, where it's more realistic, but it's still got that Marvel-ness of like silly things happening. And whenever they all fight at the airport, it's so fun. Where it's 2 sides, and they're all just trying to kick each other's ass more. They're not trying to kill each other, because they all like each other. But I love the fact that it's everybody pitted against everybody else. And I love how Ant-Man is also brought in as well, because of his interaction with Falcon and Ant-Man. I just love that airport fight where they all are fighting. And it is so funny, so incredibly just action-packed. And then I love how you get the ending with the villain, Baron Zemo, who is this character who you realize through this incredible, mind-blowing plot twist that he was in Sokovia, his family was all murdered, and because of the Avengers in Age of Ultron having to bring up, or having to stop the literal piece of the town being brought up, it killed so many people, and the debris caused Zemo to lose his family. And this guy, low-key, does all these things to the Avengers where he pits them against each other to where they want to kill each other. And it blows me away in just how these characters, like, he gives all these secrets that were revealed, where Bucky being triggered by these words that will cause him to be a mindless, like, slave to, like, it was like to where he will be a literal assassin, the Winter Soldier, and he killed Tony Stark's parents, both of them, and that just gives such an incredibly strong moment to where they have Tony, Bucky, and Captain America have this final fight, which is one of the best fights in any superhero movie and in any Marvel movie, where they duke it out, and we're like, they are literally trying to murder each other. They are trying to fucking murder each other, and it is sad, it is emotional, it is built up to where all these characters, through all of these movies, you see every reason why they're at this point. This is just one of the absolute best. In terms of, like, filmmaking, I think this is the best one. This or Black Panther. But, and even, like, you feel so much sympathy for both of these characters. That moment at the beginning of the movie where Tony Stark is down after this like talk to all these people at this university, he's down and he sees this woman, Alfre Woodard. She says to him, like, my son died in Sokovia and I blame you. It's one of the best acted moments in any of the movies, and it's incredible. And it blows me away. And this just has such high emotional stakes, such a sad emotional ending, such fantastic action, such great characters. You get every reason why everybody's here. Everybody does everything for this. You understand every reason why everybody's there. Love Civil War. It's just incredible. I'm going to quit talking about it. And then my number one. Again, so hard, but Infinity War. This one, to me, emotionally is one of the strongest, like Civil War. Having all of these characters together, again, like Civil War, the Russo brothers do a fantastic job of writing all these characters to where they all are important. They all make sense in being in the movie. They all have enough screen time to where it's not like they get shoehorned in. Everything about this movie is fantastic. Thanos is the best villain, one of the best villains in the MCU. You understand why he's like this. He's crazy, but you understand every reason. The moments where all these characters get killed off throughout is surprising, and I don't think they'll come back. And then at the end, whenever Thanos does the actual snap, yes, I know that these characters will come back, or a majority of them will come back, but when Thanos does that snap, it is just mind-blowing, and how seeing these characters die on screen for now is just so incredibly sad. Seeing Spider-Man die is one of the most emotional moments, like, in any movie I've ever seen, like, because this character is a little kid, such a likable little kid, and all these characters losing all their friends. Thanos wins, the villain wins. I love that. I love how all these characters all fit in this movie. I love the humor, I love the emotion, I love the action, I love everything that happens in this movie. Infinity War just blows me away every time, and just how strong of a movie it is. Just how you care so much for these characters. It is the literal buildup of every single character, superhero in this franchise all together in one movie, and they did it fantastically. Again, between this and Civil War, it was so hard to choose, but I picked this over just emotion, I guess to say. But everything about it is incredible. Blows me away, and I love this franchise, and thank you guys so much for watching. Tell me down below how you would rank the franchise, and again, thank you so much for watching.